It's our birthday. We are 60. Well, me and Dee aren't 60, but Alvarez is. Formed in 1965. And today on Alvarez TV, we're looking at how we commemorate this with these two wonderful masterworks, limited edition models, Diamond MF70s. Please join us while we talk about the last 60 years and the history of Alvarez. Away with the fairies.
I got a little bit lost off there. That was pretty good.
I liked it.
How you doing, mate?
Do very well, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good.
Hope you enjoyed that. I did.
Whew.
It's great.
A little bit of E minor.
E minor goes a long way in the morning.
This is true.
Does go a long way.
Very good.
Good show today, I think.
Good show.
Something new, something borrowed, something shadowburst, and something black. With a bit of pearl.
Right. Very shiny.
Very shiny.
Very blingy.
Nice abalone.
Something special about these?
Inlays in the fingerboard, which is very different for us.
Inlays in the fingerboard. I mean, this is going to make some people very happy and some people not so happy.
We do get complaints about not having inlays in the fingerboard.
Yes.
But, and diamond inlays. Could the diamond mean something?
Sounds like it could have some kind of significance to a number of years that we have been
An anniversary, maybe.
blessed.
An anniversary.
Yes, welcome to the show. We have a beautiful announcement to make.
Alvarez is 60 years old. It's 2025, 1965, 60 years. And we thought we'd make something which is special, but still kind of accessible. And a couple of Masterworks OMs.
These are lovely, man.
They are nice. They're really, really nice.
Attention to detail is superb. Balance. They've got a lovely projection. They're also really, really pretty.
They've
but subtle.
Subtle.
Yeah.
In our usual way, but yeah, the quality of the build is fantastic. So they're Masterworks. So they're MF70s. So Sitka and solid rosewood backs and sides.
Yeah.
And these are our diamond models. So it's an MF70 Shadowburst, or Diamond Shadowburst, and a diamond black. We've put these little diamond inlays in. We've also, the 12th fret inlay, Ian did this.
Yes.
So it looks like our inlay, but actually when you look close, and it's on the label as well,
yeah,
it's a 6 and a 0.
Beautiful.
But done in kind of our sort of style. So
beautiful job, Ian.
Did a fantastic job there. They're limited.
How many are we doing?
Have a guess.
Well, yeah, 60, right?
60 of each. So they'll be numbered 1 to 60, 60 Shadowburst, 60 black.
Yeah.
And they will be available throughout the year. I guess they'll go pretty quick. We've tried to make them as affordable as possible, because sometimes you get like anniversary guitars and they're very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, if we're going to do an anniversary guitar, why make it accessible for very few? Let's do something we can make very high quality, but hopefully accessible by 120 people.
Amazing.
Because there's 2 of them. But it kind of got us thinking about, the history of Alvarez, of course, 60 years. And those 60 years, like between 65 and now, probably the world has shifted more in that time, like whether technology, music,
everything,
whatever it might be. Obviously
our industry, especially. I mean,
tech-wise.
Yeah.
Internet and all that sort of stuff. And like when I was sort of looking back at 65, Gene Kornblum, who owned, or his father, Bernard Kornblum, who started St. Louis Music back in 1922 with Nilline violins. And Bernard was an immigrant in the 20s, started importing some violins and some violin parts from Germany and Austria. I think, if my memory serves me correct, Gene studied to be a lawyer, but then he came into the family business.
Oh, right, okay.
And Gene really kind of grew St. Louis Music into what it was. He created Alvarez, he grew Nilline violins, Ampeg, obviously. He saved Ampeg. Ampeg was around, but he bought it, I think it was in bankruptcy, and he turned it into, obviously, the bass.
So what kind of age was he at that time? Because
I guess he was probably late 20s or something.
Right.
30s.
Right. Young enough to kind of understand what was happening culturally. And because obviously that was a big thing to start a guitar brand. That was what was happening, right?
I think it was like, in 1965, I think the guitar became a business.
Right.
I think until 65, Orville Gibson, Leo Fender, many innovators were out there creating these instruments. And it was a smaller market. But in the 60s, I think it's like, that when you say baby boomers, after the war, when we started, the populace started growing, and there was all these babies appearing, and they were teenagers in the 60s, so they were baby boomers.
That's right.
And then music came along, and then poof, it was like the economy was good, and then the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, certainly in the States, in 64.
So many albums came out in that time.
And then in 65, the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show again. That sparked masses of guitar groups, and all of a sudden the guitar factories were like, what on earth is going on? And when you get a demand like that of any product, then the business people, the money people think, oh, we need to be a part of this as well, because this is going to be huge. Martin moved into their new factory, I believe, in 64. But 65 was their first full year of increased production. Arguably Martin became an industrialist as well as a guitar maker in 65. Leo sold Fender in 65 to CBS. So CBS, it's like, what are they doing buying? They're seeing this like movement.
Like this corporation sees the shift.
Yeah, corporations think there's money there, we're going to start buying guitar companies. CMI already owned Gibson. But if you read, if you read about guitar making in general, I think there's a lot of talk about how the guitar makers reacted to this. There's a folk boom, and then there's a rock, pop, rock, obviously rock and roll. It happened a bit earlier. Quality issues start happening in the 60s because guitar makers just couldn't meet demand. There's stories of, I think it was, I don't know if it was Gibson or whoever, but making the necks thinner and slimmer, going down from...
What, to save money?
Save money, and save money, because now the corporations own it, they want to make more money, and to make instruments more efficiently. So, they had to meet demand, and sometimes that didn't go quite to plan, because I think, was it Gibson? I think they went from like 1 inch and 11/16 to 1 inch and 9/16. Had very slim nuts on some guitars.
There may have been, maybe down to wood supply and all sorts of stuff.
Could have been all of that, Could have been, demand could have just outstripped supply. So for us, 65, Gene's like, we need to be in the guitar business, right? Yeah. So and he had classical guitars to begin with, so he just
hence the name Alvarez, right?
Hence the name.
Yeah.
And of which Ibanez would have done the same thing, I guess. They would probably start with classicals and thought of it at a similar time. And then Gene, went off to Japan. So in the 60s, Japan was like this new, massively growing industrial manufacturing base.
Yeah, because you were saying before about how kind of America invented mass production with Henry Ford, but then it was kind of the skills were honed by the Japanese who really,
I think so.
Yeah.
So Henry Ford sort of invented mass production and the product line, the production line. And then the Japanese, I think, with probably early Toyota thinkers and all that lean manufacturing, just in time, how they, through demand, needed to perfect that, and then that system was exported around the world. Everything was starting to come from Japan, so that which hadn't happened before. There was imports. So all of a sudden, Gene meets Kazuo. This was the late 60s, and
was his thinking, I need to buy guitars en masse, and the place to go to for mass production is Japan.
Correct. And also because I guess that was the only place to go, to be honest. There would have been some places in Europe, obviously, but when he met Kazuo, that factory had already been in place for 30 years. So the Yairi factory, which was owned by Kazuo's father, is actually 90 years old this year. It's 30 years older. So they were making violins to begin with, I believe, and then concert classical guitars. So Gene met him that way.
Because that kind of area is known for classical guitars, right?
It is, yeah. Yeah. Well, Nagoya is known as very much a musical instrument area.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then I guess at some stage, Gene said, can we make steel strings? And the rest is history, as I say. During the 70s, Alvarez grew very quickly because the guitars were great quality. Whatever you think of certainly the 70s for some brands was not great. We'll not get into that. It wasn't a great decade, even the 80s as well. I think we've talked about before when this mass production, nobody was really quite forgotten about the art of tone and tonality and design. It was it had become an industrialized product. The Yairi factory was still very much a large workshop rather than an industrialized factory. And they were putting out great guitars, and that was it. Just flew. All those players with the Yairis and from McCartney and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Johnny Cash and Santana. Yeah. Just a very, very desired or sort of respected brand. And I think it still is.
Absolutely.
And it's still coming from, the high end is still coming from the same place, made by the same. Even some of the people, there's a couple of people left in Yairi who, gosh, they were probably 60. They wouldn't have been there in 65, but they would have been there in 70, 71. They were probably there at the factory. And Koei's been there 68 or 69 years or something.
They must have seen huge changes at that time, though. They were probably just kind of, making some guitars and,
Yeah, production got up to, I don't know how many workers were at Yairi in the height, But remember, a lot of the guitars those days were laminated backs and sides, where now, certainly for Alvarez, Yairi, and nearly all of it's all solid and masterwork stuff. But actually, the factory probably hasn't changed that much, to be honest. And areas of it haven't changed at all. Like, you know, the bracing room looks like it's always looked. You know, for if you see old photographs for decades and decades and decades, which is great. You know, it's part of our difference.
It's amazing. It was really interesting what we were talking about before we sort of started the show about the cultural happenings at that time, though, in the 60s. I mean, you know those artists, Highway 61, which Beatles album was it? Was Rubber Soul?
There's 2 Beatles albums came out in '65, Rubber Soul and Help. Yeah. And actually, there was 3 albums.
3 albums in a year.
In a year, there was Beatles for Sale, Help, and then Rubber Soul. So if you look at that, even just, okay, it's the Beatles, but if you look at the progression of like how music and fashion and culture and subculture was changing. No,
but I mean, there's some classic, I mean...
Highway 61 Revisited came out.
You know,
My Generation.
Who? In Britain, Donovan. Yeah. You know, those big, all acoustic. I mean, that was a big skiffle thing happening in the 60s, wasn't there? You know, like in...
Well, our American cousins know what skiffle is. Do you know what skiffle is? Is that in English? Is it skiffle?
I think, yeah. Well, I mean, it's obviously...
They used a washboard, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They did, yeah. Tea chests, and it was very much kind of music of the people, wasn't it? Yeah. And you could just get up and make a noise. But it was influenced by, you know, American R&B at the time and stuff, you know. Yeah,
it was rapid change.
It was a time when everybody was wanting to get out and make some music, right?
Yeah, it was, and that was the demand. I mean, the guitar exploded in the mid-60s, no doubt. But also what we were saying before is like, it hasn't really changed much since.
That's a really interesting thought. Yeah, because I mean, I guess at that time it would have been mostly dreads, right, and probably some OM shapes.
Triple O's, because the OM disappeared, didn't it, in the 30s? Didn't come back.
Yeah. And
so there was Triple O's, Gibsons, J200s, J45s, all that was kicking
big
around.
jumbos, yeah.
You know, there was
you had the Everleys playing the big jumbos, you had Elvis playing the big jumbo,
with the big pick guards on. The Beatles, obviously, like Epiphone, Gibson J160Es with
that Epiphone Texan that McCartney was playing, wasn't he? Or was that George? Was George playing the Texan?
He had a Gretsch.
Right.
Although the guitar hasn't changed, I think, has it not changed because it was immortalized by that music? These things haven't changed. Stratocaster hasn't changed. You know, Dread, OM, J40, you know, the standard shapes, apart from, you know, Bob Taylor brought out the Grand Auditorium, apart from that, there's been some side things going on. Mm-hmm. Nothing's changed, you know, and was the guitar just like, they got it right, and it was immortalized by the music and the musicians of that time that really couldn't be bettered. It was fixed. It was like, this is it.
There's a whole show on stuff like that, isn't there? We could really explore that, and think we should. But there's, I think you're absolutely right. I think it was immortalized, wasn't it, by those artists?
Almost pop rock music. You know, it was so sculptured at that time. It's like, that's how you make pop music.
Yeah.
All right, no doubt. And somebody will jump in with, you know, electronic comes, you know, rock, heavy metal, electronica, dance, disco, all that sort of stuff. And we definitely, you know, later on the guitar certainly had quiet moments, and possibly we're in one of the quiet moments now. I mean, how many guitars do you see on a, you know, in I don't know, do we still do charts of music, like
no
Billboard or whatever?
Well, yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
I think it exists, but does anyone take any notice of it?
So like, guitars had some quiet times, but I think I don't think the design of these instruments, it's the same as the violin, like it hasn't changed for 400 years, and why? You know, imagine the car not changing. Imagine cars not changing for 60 years.
There's something about musicians create art on the instruments that are available to them, right? And the instruments have kind of been immortalized by the artists, right? And then after that comes, I guess, people copying and trying to take influence from the artists that have been there previously. But still no change. Yeah, well, exactly that, and I think that's why.
Cars, computers, telecommunications, everything in our homes, like everything has changed. The way we communicate, like in those 60 years, like rapid, unrecognizable change. Mm-hmm. stayed the same.
Yeah.
Stayed the same.
Yeah.
Stratocaster stayed. And people have tried to come out with inventions, but it's like, do we want them? I want to sit at home with a Dreadnought. Now we have smart guitars. You know, we have like effects and loopers and, you know, like recorders.
Carbon fiber
and
guitars.
Carbon fiber. Like,
you know.
why hasn't carbon fiber taken off? You can make good sounding carbon fiber guitars.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want them. Why?
Because they have no romance about them.
But like even the generations like 1 or 2 below us, right? So we're getting into this now, and please join in. But like, why? You know, even younger people coming through now. The people I see on Instagram, these drummers and guitarists, they're playing Beatles music.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's almost like it's not the starting point for the instruments, but the all that what came together. I don't know. It seems immortalized to a certain extent. Anyway, we digress.
65 was a great year.
65 was a great year. It was our birth year, and thank goodness we're still going. You know, Mr. Yairi and Gene are not with us any longer. We thank them dearly for kicking this off. We wouldn't be here. And we've got these 2 lovely guitars. We'll recognise things that we've done now and in the future. And if you can get your hands on one, there's 60 of each. And we hope you like them.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. If you want to watch more videos like this one, click the video on the screen now.